Okay, so today what I wanted to do was go over my personal favourite moments from the whole of the Resident Evil series. These are going to be things that happen in-game that kind of stuck in my mind for a while, or the impact they had on me. Like, I'm going to explain, like, kind of what I felt in that moment of that certain part of that game. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is obviously going to be spoilery in a way for a lot of the mainline series, 1 through 8. So you have been warned. If you do not want to see any spoilers for any of the mainline games, do click off the video, but I'm sure most of you have played most of them, so none of these clips should be too spoilery. So without any further ado, let's start with the first one.
What's going on? Someone there?
Now this whole sequence in Village blew my mind. Like, I don't think I've audibly said holy shit to a game very much when there's a big reveal, but this was definitely one of those times. Like, I did not expect this reveal to happen. Let's not forget, prior to this moment, Ethan just got his heart ripped out of his chest very easily and died. So coming back to him now was like, what the fuck's going on? And obviously you can kind of tell he's in like some kind of limbo here, but Jesus Christ, dude. Finding out that he died right at the very beginning of 7 is now basically just a molded is insane. Like, I did not expect it. It does make a lot of sense when you think, when you know it's a thing. It makes a lot of sense because obviously he loses his hand in Village and he kind of puts it back on like it's nothing and doesn't even question it himself. So it's kind of weird. But as soon as you know, like, why he can do that and you know what happened to him, it is just a fucking mind-blowing moment. Like, it was insane. I think personally, Ethan as a character is definitely better in Village than he is in 7, but overall I would say he's a really good character. A lot of people don't like him, think he's kind of boring, and you know there's not a lot about him going on, more so from playing 7, but in Village they definitely do improve on his story and his character, and it is a shame to see him go, but something tells me he'll be involved with RE9 in some way or another, so maybe it's not the end just yet.
Remember. 3 years ago, the Baker house. You were murdered by Jack. You died there 3 years ago.
Ethan? Ethan? Hey, shh, I know. I'm not gonna hurt you. Hell, I never would have if I could have helped you.
So staying with Ethan briefly for another moment that I thought was pretty good and pretty kind of... It was quite emotional at the moment. It was quite a kind of reality check to what was actually going on. Is when Jack speaks to Ethan through the Mega Melody and basically explains that, you know, he's not like he's not a bad guy. It's just Evelyn's kind of ruined his family basically. Like, they're all nice people. They're all, obviously if you've played the Daughters DLC, you'll know that they're all kind of nice people. They're really nice people. They're all like, it's a normal family, but then Evelyn turned up and just made them do shit they didn't want to do. It does seem to suggest that he's aware of what he's doing the whole time, but he can't stop himself from doing it, so all these people he's killed and kind of turned into the mob monsters throughout the game, he completely knows that he's doing it, but he can't, like, fight her influence to do it. So basically this kind of scene here is him explaining what Evelyn can do and how she does what she does, and then him asking Ethan to just help his family, you know, kill them, kill her, stop her, and kind of, like, you know, give them an opportunity to rest, which is, it's a pretty deep moment, but it's very well done because Jack is a good character in 7, I would say. So this whole moment is a big deal.
All right, you find her and you stop her. Ethan. 3 Free my family. Please.
¡Por allí! ¡No dejes que se escape! Vayan por detrás.
Who are these people?
¡Bloqueen el paso!
What are they planning? Chainsaw. Shit.
¡Te voy a matar!
Son of a...
Right, next up we have the village section, the very beginning of Resident Evil 4. This section is terrifying when you played it, when you haven't played it before. A little bit of background for my first experience with RE4 was I was at a friend's house, and he had a Nintendo Wii, and we basically played any game on the Nintendo Wii we would play, and he got Resident Evil 4. And if you didn't know, obviously Resident Evil 4 on the Wii is motion controls, obviously. So you kind of aim in, and then you aim with the controller where you want to aim. So obviously if you play the Wii, you know. If you haven't played the Wii, now you do. It's motion controls. So it made the whole thing even more intense, because you had to aim at things, you had to be paying attention to where things were. If you don't know what the opening sequence of Resident Evil 4 is, it is essentially a 4 minutes, I think it's 4 minutes, survival sequence where it throws a lot of enemies at you in a very small space of time. Because it's so early in the game, you do not have a lot of ammo, you do not have a lot of healing, you don't really know what you're doing in terms of playing the game yet, and it just throws a lot of enemies at you at once. Not just normal enemies either, there is a chainsaw guy in the mix. And he will one-shot you if he hits you. You are dead in one hit if he touches you, which is even more terrifying. This whole section, you know, I think the music that's playing in the background, the random screaming from all the villagers that are running around trying to kill you, the hordes of them coming at you at once when you've got not a lot of bullets at all, it makes the whole thing very intense. And the chainsaw guy does not go down easy, especially when you've got not a lot of bullets and not very well upgraded weapons. You have to be moving or holding out somewhere as best you possibly can, or else you're probably going to die. It does kind of throw you into the fray very well. It does it enough for you to kind of figure out what you're doing really fast, but not too intense that it's impossible. After all, it is a timed thing, like where you could literally run around in circles and you'd be fine. But it's still that first initial kind of experience with it, like you feel like, oh, it's not going to be that many, I'll probably deal with it, and then it's like a minute later you're still fighting and you're like, when are these things going to stop coming, because I am on like 2 bullets now. Of course, this sequence has been replicated in future games. Resident Evil 5 has a sequence in the beginning, very early on. The same thing basically happens, as well as in Village as well with the Lycan attack. It is the same premise, you know, you have very limited things, there's a lot of enemies coming at you at once and you have to survive until you basically save by a cutscene. But the impact is a lot more prominent in Resident Evil 4. More so to the point because, you know, 4 is the first game that did it, so playing it in 5 and 8, you kind of are already aware of what you need to do. And it doesn't have the same effect, but in 4, it was mental. And plus, it ends with a pretty memorable cutscene.
Lord Sattler.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
You haven't changed.
Wesker, you are alive.
This is Wesker.
We last met at the Spencer estate, wasn't it? Well, isn't this one big family reunion? I would expect you to be happier to see us. Us? So slow to catch on.
Okay, next we have the Wesker and Jill fight in Resident Evil 5. Now Resident Evil 5, I will say, I quite like Resident Evil 5. There's a video coming out this week that I'm hoping to be out by the end of the week, where I talk about Resident Evil 5 in a very positive light. I'm not to spoil anything, but I just really do like Resident Evil 5 a lot. I'm not ashamed to say it. But either way, a plot point in Resident Evil 5 is that Jill has essentially, for what most people can kind of assume, has died. There is some cutscenes in the game explaining that, but obviously that turns out to not be the case. You find out about 25-30% of the way through the game that she's alive, or Chris thinks she's alive, and then you find out what happened to her and stuff like that. And then eventually you get this reveal that this masked character that's been following you around and interfering with everything is Jill. Obviously she's not herself, she's under the influence of this thing that's on her chest that is basically like a brainwashing thing that makes her do what Wesker wants. Again, this does follow the same kind of thing they introduced with Jack later on with the Evelyn telepathic stuff, that she knows exactly what she's doing as well. Like, she's aware of what's going on, but she can't stop herself from doing it. So it's pretty rough. On top of that, we have Wesker himself. This is the final, well, not the final, but this game is the final confrontations with Chris, Jill, and Wesker. Obviously, goes way back to the very beginning of the Resident Evil series with the first game, and Wesker betraying the stars and basically sending them to the mansion to be test subjects for the viruses. But yeah, this is the final kind of confrontation between Chris and Wesker. Well, the whole game, like I said, is. So it's mental. And dealing with Wesker throughout the game, probably the last half of the game, is pretty interesting because he's quite powerful. He's very fast, can dodge basically every bullet, and you have to kind of think about how you're going to beat him. I remember my first time playing this through, again with a friend, and we were trying to just fight him normally, because the boss fight gives you a certain amount of time before he just leaves, but there is a way to beat him and get it done early. We did figure it out eventually, and it did take a lot of replaying to do it, but you can do it. And then again, you can kind of use the same system later on to beat him, but then the final fight in the volcano is just mental, and it is crazy. But then after dealing with Wesker, he leaves the arena, and then you have to deal with Jill, and you have to save Jill. This requires a lot of communication with the teammate you're playing, because essentially one of you has to grab her while the other one pulls the scarab thing off her chest. There is ways to make it easier. Depends if you trust your partner enough, and essentially what you can do is, while she's being grabbed from behind, or while she's on the floor, you can shoot the scarab, which makes it weaker, which makes it easier to pull off. But again, how much do you trust your partner not to shoot her in the face? The whole thing is like, it is a big deal in the storyline, because obviously Chris is trying to save his partner who he thought was dead for a while. So it is emotional impact there, especially with them being able to save her and having her back. But the question for the community still stands, is when will Jill return to the series? Because this is the last time she's actually physically in a game. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there, but this whole boss fighting sequence was really cool.
There she is. Cut her off. I've got her.
Now this one I like a lot. This is mainly just huge fan service. This is not the first time Chris and Leon have met, but having them fight off in the game briefly and clearly being able to beat each other quite easily, it's just so satisfying to watch. These are two of the big players from the very beginning of the series fighting each other very briefly, but it's still such a cool thing to see, and they both have their reasons for it. Obviously, Chris is chasing Ada because he essentially killed a lot of his team prior to the events that are happening right now, whereas Leon is fully aware that Ada isn't involved with what's going on, but what they both don't know is that's not Ada. So, you know, there's two Adas in this game. There is a clone of Ada that is kind of Simmons' wife, I believe. Like I don't know, I don't recall exactly what it is, but yeah, that's not Ada. So, Leon doesn't know that and he's trying to protect her, but Chris doesn't know that that's not Ada, and he knows that she's the one that killed his old team. So, they both don't know us. They're both being played, but it's just cool to see them fight and kind of agree to help each other out in a sense, as long as, you know, they keep out each other's way. It's just cool to see, man.
Chris, wait! We both want the same thing here.
All right. The BSAA will handle Ada. You take care of Simmons.
Chris! I know you'll do the right thing.
Well, that is going to do it. They are my kind of top picks for now of my personal favourite moments throughout the series. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but they are just mine. But as always, I'll be interested to see what yours are. Are they the same as mine? Are some of them the same? Are they different? Do let me know. But thank you for watching. I know it's a bit longer than normal, so thank you for sticking with it. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.